Grettir the Strong spends his most famous years inside Iceland, yet the law makes his homeland almost unreachable. Farms offer warmth, food, and news, but each shelter can also expose his helpers to penalties. Open country promises concealment while demanding constant movement through cold, hunger, and limited supplies. This contradiction creates the outlaw hero more effectively than strength alone. Grettir's saga turns legal exclusion into a long contest between one exceptional body and an inhabited landscape. Its protagonist may preserve memory of an 11th century Icelander, but his complete career belongs to later literature. The saga reached written form centuries after the period it portrays. Its surviving manuscripts are later still, carrying variants produced through transmission. Accordingly, Grettir's 19-year outlawry is a narrative claim rather than an independently continuous record. The first task is to understand the institution that gives his adventures their shape. Medieval Iceland had assemblies and law without a king directing a centralized enforcement system. The Althing served as the island's general assembly, while local institutions handled disputes nearer home. Lawsuits depended upon procedure, witnesses, alliances, and people capable of enforcing judgments. Punishment could include lesser outlawry for a limited term or full outlawry with far harsher consequences. Full outlaw lost ordinary legal protection and could be killed without the usual liability. Anyone providing sustained assistance risked becoming entangled in the outlaw's dangerous status. Actual practice varied with power, kinship, negotiation, and the willingness of communities to act. That gap between judgment and enforcement allowed a famous outlaw to remain narratively mobile. Grettir's saga exploits every edge of that gap. The story places Grettir within an established family rather than presenting him as a rootless bandit. He is the son of Asmund and Asdis, members of a northern Icelandic farming household. From youth, he appears stubborn, difficult to discipline, and prodigiously strong. This pattern makes social incompatibility seem present before any formal sentence. Also lets the narrator foreshadow exile as character-meeting circumstance. Strength brings Grettir recognition, yet it seldom produces durable authority. Can lift, swim, fight, and endure beyond ordinary men. In this telling, physical power remains distinct from the social strength of reciprocal support. Its Iceland contains no empty wilderness wholly separated from farms. Upland routes, grazing zones, fishing places, islands, and shelters remain connected to household economies. An outlaw survives by entering those networks without securely belonging to them. Food must come from animals, stored provisions, trading, theft, or allies. Winter reduces travel and exposes dependence on buildings and fuel. The landscape becomes an enforcement mechanism because survival repeatedly draws Grettir back toward other people. Before his full outlawry, the saga sends him abroad and through escalating conflicts. Norway supplies royal authority of a kind Iceland lacks. Grettir's encounters there contrast personal force with courts capable of granting or withholding recognition. A building burns, killing men inside, and Grettir is blamed for causing their deaths. Its account maintains that the fire was accidental and that his attempts to help were misunderstood. His opponents secure a judgment of full outlawry at the Althing. This framing matters because it makes the hero legally condemned without morally accepting the decisive charge. The audience can respect law's seriousness while believing procedure has produced injustice. No contemporary case file confirms the fire or preserves testimony from its participants. The episode functions as the narrative hinge, converting a violent man into a persecuted wanderer. Earlier killings remain part of his record, so innocence is carefully limited. Another transformation arrives through Glam, an undead shepherd haunting a farm in the north. The fight is among the saga's most celebrated, supernatural episodes. Grettir overcomes Glam physically but receives a curse that darkens his remaining life. Afterward, fear of darkness joins the practical burdens of outlawry. No historical method can verify an undead opponent or spoken curse. Within the literary design, however, Glam explains why victory increases rather than resolves Grettir's isolation. The monster also belongs to a Christian-era saga, looking backward upon Iceland's conversion period. Its supernatural world mixes inherited motifs with moral and religious interpretation. Reading the scene as folklore reveals narrative purpose without reducing it to documentary incident. First shadows, later setbacks, giving scattered misfortunes a single memorable cause. The supernatural layer makes structural vulnerability feel personal and faded. Grettir moves among remote shelters and receives intermittent help from relatives and sympathetic farmers. Some hosts admire him, while others calculate danger or opportunity. His mother Asdis remains a particularly durable source of loyalty. Kinship does not overturn the sentence, but it complicates every attempt to isolate him. Repeated episodes test how far obligation can extend toward someone outside legal protection. Helpers provide food, information, boats, or temporary refuge. Opponents use the same settled network to locate and pursue him. Efforts to shorten or end his outlawry become crucial because endurance alone offers no resolution. Time itself becomes almost a contested possession within the narrative. If Grettir can survive long enough, advocates may obtain a change in his status. Political maneuvering at the assembly repeatedly postpones or frustrates that possibility. The claimed 19 years magnify both his endurance and the injustice of delayed restoration. Its literary effect is unmistakable. Law stretches across most of an adult life. Drangey becomes the final geographical answer to this predicament. The steep island rises in Saga fjord, separated from the mainland by dangerous water. Its cliffs restrict access, while grazing and birds offer resources. Grettir occupies it with his brother Illugi and a servant named Glam. Here the saga compresses Iceland's legal order into a siege around one isolated refuge. Control of the latter and landing place matters more than open battle. Local farmers lose access to an economically useful island while the outlaws hold it. Isolation protects Grettir only while supplies, health, loyalty, and access remain intact. Sorcery then enters the narrative mechanism of Grettir's defeat. His enemy Thorbjorn Hook employs the foster mother Thurid, who is portrayed as working harmful magic. A cursed piece of timber ultimately causes Grettir a disabling wound. The supernatural intervention also makes his enemy's victory morally compromised. Illness and injury narrow the refuge before attackers scale the island. Grettir and Illugi are killed, ending resistance but not the saga's reckoning. The violence is followed by lawsuits and disputes over the manner of the killing. Even an outlaw's death can generate legal consequences when attackers violate other boundaries. The story refuses to let vengeance stand outside procedure. Its final sections continue through Thorstein Dromund, Grettir's half-brother, and a distant revenge narrative. It also reveals how saga composition enlarges one outlaw's death into a trans-regional family resolution. For recoverable history, the safest ground is narrower than the complete adventure. Grettir appears in genealogical tradition, connected with real Icelandic districts and remembered families. The legal institutions, settlement geography, and household dependencies shaping his outlawry are historically grounded. Individual fights, curses, speeches, and the exact sequence remain products of a much later text. Archaeological landscapes can clarify routes and resources around Drangey without identifying saga actions. No excavation can certify Glam's curse or assign motive at the fatal ascent. The saga's achievement lies in making law visible through bodily need. Every meal tests allegiance, each winter measures exclusion, and every refuge remains attached to someone's rights. Grettir becomes heroic because he endures this system, not because the narrative proves him innocent of all violence. He remains dangerous enough to justify fear and wronged enough to command sympathy. That calibrated contradiction separates him from a simple criminal or invincible folk champion. His supernatural enemies protect the legend, but farms, assemblies, and provisions give it historical weight. Grettir the Strong was made an outlaw hero when Icelandic storytelling turned legal death into 19 years of stubborn life.